That's reason enough, don't you think? Why does anybody out there have a problem with the Reggie Miller? Why would they? I mean, Reggie Miller, 18 years, the guy around here? Yeah. Do it. Why would anybody have a problem with it? I saw the Indianapolis Star had a list of celebrities from small towns in the state of Indiana. And I'm not...
Did you make it?
No, I didn't make it. I'm not suggesting. But Phil Harris, the great Phil Harris from Linton's not on it. What about Phil Harris? You don't know who Phil Harris is.
No.
The great Phil Harris isn't on it. Who's doing that list? On the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, it is the segment you have to hear, you must hear, and gives you the best Colts look about the past game and the upcoming Week 2 matchup with Washington. His name, Rick Venturi. Hey, Rick, before we get into it, we all remember where we were on this date 17 years ago. Where were you?
Well, I can remember it exactly. Like you said, I was... And it all relates to football, obviously, at this time of year. We at New Orleans had come off of a great comeback season with Jim Haslett's first year. After Mike Ditka's last season that was 3-13 in 99, we came back in 2000, if you remember, with 11-5. We won our first playoff game in Saints history against the then Rams, the greatest show on turf. Lost to the Vikings, but went into 2001 with great aspirations and great look forward. And we won our first ball game in 2001, on that first week in September against Buffalo at Buffalo. So we were coming back from that. It was a Tuesday morning. I was in my normal routine, and as a coach, you can almost tell exactly what you're doing every minute for 7 months. I was breaking down the San Francisco 49ers, who we were going to play the next Sunday in New Orleans. We were all excited, really all pumped up, and I was breaking down that tape. And I was assistant head coach to Jim Haslett, and Jim's office and mine were adjacent. We had separate offices, and we had an adjoining door. And I'm in there grinding away around 9 o'clock or whatever it was, specifically working on the Niners. And I remember he opened the door and said, "Rick, turn TV. Will you turn on your TV? You're not going to believe what's going on. There's planes flying into the trade center." And, and obviously, we did. I turned it on to CNN at that point in time. And, the rest was history. But, yeah, I was right in the middle of my routine on a Tuesday. I actually can remember it like yesterday. And because I was a little bit older and, had a sense of history, believe it or not, I was a history major at Northwestern, and I always, I still am very much into history and politics. And Jim actually had me address the team once they had decided that we wouldn't play. But it was, it was just it is. I've got a few things in my lifetime, because I'm old enough to remember a few things. Obviously, I was a senior in high school when the Kennedy assassination took place, and I can remember exactly where I was that moment at, whatever I was, 16, whatever. I remember I remember Neil Armstrong stepping on the moon in 69. My wife and I were just married, and we were up in Wisconsin on vacation when we were in a gin mill watching it at about 11 o'clock at night. And of course, 9/11 is just so staggering because, I wasn't around for Pearl Harbor, but even, at Pearl Harbor, as bad as that was, it didn't hit the mainland. It was miles from thousands of miles from the mainland. This was one we didn't know. Incredible.
And taking place during, morning television, whether it was national or local. And I still, the feeling of despair and emptiness. And then there was that one fleeting, for the first time ever, we felt like we were all together.
We did.
Yeah, it was surreal.
Did. Yeah, we actually did. That's no question about it. I would say probably, I'd have to say that's the only time in my lifetime I think that we ever, that I ever felt that way, that every single guy was in the boat.
Yeah. Rick Venturi is with us 17 years ago today. 9/11/2001. All right. Well, they didn't play football, obviously, that weekend. Didn't have any sports, with the exception of a race in Germany we talked about. But we'll move on to things of a lesser degree, but certainly important to those that listen. I want to get back to Sunday's game because of this. Because I think it's okay, I believe, to be happy with seeing Luck play or seeing new guys, but being incredibly disappointing because wins are going to be hard to come by, and knowing that they blew one on Sunday against the Bengals.
No, that's exactly right. And I think the emotion kind of wears out. Usually we do this show on Monday, and even though by then I have done the film a couple times, there's still emotion involved because we're less than 24 hours away from the ending. With this one, doing it on Tuesday, you have time to really kind of reflect and get a little bit more analytical. Emotion kind of diminishes, and as a matter of fact, I've spent all day today on Washington. But you're exactly right. I mean, the way I look at it, realistically is, there are some reasons for optimism, now and in the long term. And then we have to keep it real. There's real things that happen that are, we've been repeat offenders around here, and, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. Everybody's going to give the new staff a little bit of break. I think if the same thing would have happened to Bogano, Grigson in 12, I wasn't here, the same thing would have happened. They would have, everybody would have still been optimistic because everything is new. You tend to give everybody the edge there. I would say that the things that were most optimistic, and you've kind of mentioned them, but number one and the foremost thing is that Andrew Luck is back. I don't think there's any question about it. Imperfect, a bad play in the red zone. When you're going to throw 55 balls in a game, you ain't going to be perfect. I mean, Rod Carew is in the Hall of Fame, hit 328, 3 out of 10. So, I mean, you're gonna have some issues. But 39 of 50, 39 of 53, 65%. Really handled that 2 minutes at the end, basically had it. That's where I think the game was a letdown because you actually felt that you were going to win that. I don't think there's any question. I felt that Cincy was really gassed. I felt their pass rush was really gassed on that last drive, and that's what we needed, and we were moving it down. And in that respect, you have to say that Luck put us in position to win. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We got a minute to go. You mentioned it yesterday. Frank had all his timeouts. I mean, he hadn't wasted any timeouts, and so we had more than enough time, to win it. Except for Clayton Fedulum. It's funny about Fedulum. When we did that last preseason game, I was hoping the hell he wouldn't make any plays because I thought I would butcher his name, but I guess he's become a household name now in Cincinnati, but that's one big positive.
Yeah, and he's not even in there if Sean Williams doesn't get ejected either.
Isn't that amazing?
Or he may not have been. He wouldn't be playing that position.
No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't have been there. So that obviously that's huge. We got and I think that you, myself, I think the whole city, just when he's playing. And he's Full Metal Jacket. You just feel like you're going to be in every game. I mean, you have there is a different vibe, if you will, when he's there because of the talent, his ability to extend. He made a great extension to make a first down where he also got the penalty and the ejection. It was like a 40-yard gain almost. But so, that is the biggest plus. I think you got to like the way Frank ran the offense. I don't know, again, if we win the game, then it's one of the greatest games of all time. We end up winning 30-24, and then we are happy as hell. But I can't remember when a offensive coach, and I kind of thought this would happen, maximized his assets around here and minimized his deficits. I thought he did an absolute great job. Without with the tackle issues, the running back issues, all the stuff that he has. I mean, he went out and wore out that quick passing game. I mean, it was slants, drag. I got them written down here: drag, slants, hitches, stick routes, which are those real quick hooks, angles to the back, F angles to 21. And then on 3rd and 4, the rub, the rub, we got called once, but the rub for the slot coming across. And he did exactly what I prescribed last week. I said all along, all week I said, we got to play Canadian football, got to be really good on those first 2 downs, and make sure that we stay in 3rd and 5 or less. And we did a great job of that, particularly in the first half. And because of that, we had a real high conversion rate on 3rd down, where Cincinnati is usually pretty good. But I give Frank a ton of credit. We've talked around here about getting that ball out quick when you're struggling in the offensive line. Our offensive line held up, but I wouldn't do a victory lap. I think a lot of that had to do with the design. When we did have to throw with some long yardage situation, there was plenty of pressure. But I give Frank a ton of credit. He moved people around. Hilton lined up all over. He got the ball to different guys. They sprayed it around. He did take a shot and got the one shot, which was a little bit longer play on the touchdown to Ebron. He got a matchup that we knew we would get at some point. And then Hilton drops a bomb, but he gets over the top. He gets him right over the top, and he throws a dime in there and misses it. And you just, unfortunately, we had two of our top guys, and Hilton and Doyle, have, big, what you would say physical errors, not mistakes, just physical errors in not catching the ball and getting the ball knocked out in critical situations. But I like that. I mean, I've been critical of that. And I think Andrews suffered because people say he holds on to the ball. Well, he held on to the ball. If you're going to have 7-step drops all day, you're going to
and your guys aren't going to get open. And we tried to say that forever, and everybody else just wanted to hot take it
around here. And then the national media jumps on it because they listen to one another. But I mean, I've said that all along. When you're throwing 7-step drops, your receivers are all downfield. You're not looking to check it down. You're looking for guys to get open. Well, he showed you he can get it out a million times if he has to. The problem is, and I forecasted this a little bit, I thought we would have Costanzo, so I didn't think we would be that limited. But I forecasted it because I saw Baltimore do it in those 2 practices. By the second day, when they realized that you were going to have to throw everything quick, they start to sit on you, and that was one of Cincinnati's adjustments in the second half.
It sure was.
They really squashed the matchup down in the zone. They got the man-to-man tighter, basically because they knew that once you get reduced to that, and we had advantage. See, we had advantages going in, because basically Frank did a good job on both sides of the ball. We didn't show anything in the preseason, so they weren't, totally. They had to play us a little bit honest there in the first half. But they screwed it down really tight in the second half, and they did that, and then they started running the linebackers through because we were staying on the double teams, but we were staying on them so long, and they started running the linebackers through, and that really dented our running game. So they made a couple adjustments to us in that regard. Then the third thing that I think, and I said this last week, and I'm going to kind of stay with it, I think we have a little bit better defensive personnel than we think, than is advertised. I thought that we had, I thought Al Woods gave us more pressure than we even saw from him last year. Hunt, obviously, he had the good game. Toure was very active. I felt for him on the horse collar. It's one thing to make a horse collar when you're running, like kind of running a guy down out of bounds. Boy, he was in the box there, and you're just grabbing.
Yeah, he was just grabbing. He just grabbed that spot.
I realize it's a penalty. I don't particularly like it. To me, it has to affect somebody negatively. But I thought that he was really active. He was active without a lot of numbers, but he showed the burst that I've seen him do in college. I think he's going to be an edge bender. I thought the corners, Harrison and Moore, just like I thought they would. I still don't understand the Wilson thing. Somebody will have to explain that to me because I think, and this is me talking with a lot of defense background, I think Dezier's, their top corner. I am just amazed that you would put Quincy Wilson out there with that hand like that and expect him to play. He doesn't do a good job of jamming anyway. and Desir doesn't play a snap. That's why I was.
I'm assuming that's just a draft. I mean, you drafted him, and
yeah, but that's ridiculous. I mean,
I'm just guessing here, but
no. Well, I mean, it's one thing to be on the team, but I mean, at the same time, you got to play the best guys. I mean, to me, that would be criminal. If that's true, then that's criminal. It's one thing to keep your top draft choices and develop them. But if you're not playing the best guys that day to win the game, then that's criminal. That's really not right at all. And I'm not saying it's there. Maybe they think that much of it. Maybe I'm wrong on Desir, but I've seen Desir play a lot better than the rest of those guys. And Hairston held up, and Kenny held up. I thought our safeties really struggled. I mean, Hooker was, of course, you once. See, this is the thing on the defense. I think our defense plays hard. I don't think they don't. I think they do. And again, in the young kids, Leonard looks sharp. He looks good. That's why I think we're a little bit better than we think. But it's not varied, and it's not very, we're not very technical. We play hard, but we don't play technical. We give up the edge. I mean, as soon as A.J. Green comes into that number 2 spot, when he isn't the Lone Ranger, when he isn't the X by himself, when he's in that number 2 spot, and this is history, this isn't me talking, he's going deep. He's going either in the seam or the post, and so you got to get up and jam him. I thought Moore didn't jam him enough, and then I don't know what Hooker was thinking. He let him get back inside. You got in that coverage, which is a quarters type coverage, he's got to hold off the post. If he throws this corner, then you get some help from the corner, and they ran a smash. Your corner would have been there. But, he played it really fundamentally bad. I didn't think Geathers particularly had a good game. The penalty was ridiculous. It was not just because it was a ridiculous penalty. He lined up. He had inside help. If you look at the play, it's what we call a one hole, where everybody plays outside leverage, and you have the linebacker, which was the young kid sitting right in the middle, ready to go. Leonard right in the middle, ready to go, and for some reason, Geathers plays inside, lets the tight end get outside, and then grabs the hell out of him. And that was there was 3 critical penalties. Again, I'm not as hard on Toure, because I think that's a tough one. That's just a tough one in the box. But Geathers should have had better leverage to start with. He got beat on release, and then that was a silly penalty, and then of course we had the coaching penalty down inside the 5, which was silly, trying to make a one-man substitution, and so that ended up being a bad drive. But again, I do think that there's a little bit of talent. I thought we got a little bit more push than we probably expected. And those are that would be the positive parts. I would also say I thought our 18 draft outplayed our 17 draft as far as players. Whether that's important or not, I think that our 18 draft outplayed our 17 draft.
I don't think there's any doubt about that too. I wondered, you mentioned Pierre Desir. Did he get Hassan Ridgeway? Were you surprised Hassan Ridgeway was inactive?
Yeah, a little bit. I was a little bit, but I think here's what happens is. Basically, they like Stewart to roll. They've got Stewart down the road for Woods. And then on third down, what they're doing, not just on third down, but they're using Hunt both as a first down defensive end, and then they're kicking him down to the 3, so he's playing inside. And when they go to their form of the NASCAR package now, which I do like, Basham actually goes inside. In the fourth quarter, Basham was inside with Toure outside and Autry and Sheard. And so they feel, I think, that they can get more guys to go in and play that 3. They don't really have a stand-up nose guard other than Stewart and Woods, because the 3 technique and the nose are completely different. In a 4-3, they're pretty close to one another. But in this hybrid 4-3 that they're playing, the 3 technique is an upfield guy, and the nose tackle is an on-the-line physical guy. So I think Stewart got the nod, and then Ridgeway was out because they had more guys they can kick in there as per Hunt and then as per Basham in their NASCAR package. So that was it. But I think on the other side of the coin, the toughest thing, as you said, this is, the thing about it is Ball State had a moral victory, Saturday at South Bend. there is no moral victories in the National Football League. First game, last game, any game. You got 16 equal rounds, like a heavyweight fight. The only difference is if you get behind in the rounds, there's no knockout at the end. You can't bring them back. I think this was a tough one because, A, you were on the lip of the green to win it. You've kind of found a way to lose it, just like we have in the past. And this was a team, and you kind of alluded to it, this was a team that's in your pond. They're in your level. And I said that going in. They've got some good things, but they have they have an offensive line that's not very good at all. I mean, in that right tackle, it's just, you saw Hunt just kill Hart. He knew Hart backwards and forwards. I mean, you just can't. They're going to struggle with that guy. So this was one that you really could get. I think the other thing is, the thing that's upsetting to me is that I judge National Football League teams, the older I get, I judge them really in two areas. The last 25 to 30 yards of the field, because people usually say the red zone's the 20, but to me, in studying that over the years, people begin to change once they cross the 30 and certainly the 25. Plays, become what I call red zone plays, high red, low red. And, if you count Doyle's play on the 15, we were inside the red zone really 4 times, of which we got the one to Hilton, but we had 3 times in there. We were in there 3 times where we had an interception, a fumble, and settle for a field goal. So, where you have to be at your best, both offensively and defensively, because teams will move the ball between the 20s, really, and it's all about will down there, and, this is when your back is to the wall. We really, in some ways, if you want to look at it, we left 18 points out there. Because if you get 3 touchdowns, obviously it's 21. We ended up with 3 out of those 3 situations. And then again, our fourth quarter, we got outscored 17-0. Even if you take Fedulum's play out, we still get outscored 10-0 in the fourth quarter, which would lead the league on the negative side. And that's been, I've been preaching that for the last 2 years and we've been at the bottom on that, and that has to be fixed because games in the National Football League, especially with luck in there, you're going to play a lot of competitive games. You're going to be in the fourth quarter to win the game, and you have to find a way to win it. Now, unfortunately, if we don't fumble the ball on the 15, we might not even be having that discussion. But, at the end of the day, Cincinnati dominated the second half. They really did. So, I mean, those are some of the things that hit you just from a big picture standpoint. But that's kind of the way it is. But there's reasons for optimism, but you got to get real. And going into Washington is interesting. When I broke Washington down in the summer, of course, I broke a lot of I broke a couple early season games and mostly late games. And I really thought, at that point that this would be the second game that we really would have a really good opportunity to do very well in. And, I think you can play with anybody. I think this league is that balanced. But they really have looked good. They didn't make a bunch of moves, but they made some critical moves. They got Williams in there at left tackle. They got Allen back, and they drafted Payne. So on defense, they got 2 guys inside. They were really smart in getting Adrian Peterson. When Geis went down, they didn't hesitate. They went out and got him. And they've got a running back who went out in November that I've been hearing about, and this Chris Thompson was phenomenal. I mean, between Thompson and Peterson, I mean, this is true, John. They had 294 total yards.
And I tell you what, Rick, what really impressed me, and we'll get to that coming up on the other side, they had 3 over 70-yard scoring drives in that game. And to me, that really does. That screws with your bend but don't break defensive mentality right there. I tell you what, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the offensive line if Costanzo can't return.
Yep.
And now that Webb is out on the right side. And I want to ask you on the other side if you think there is a significant ball security problem with Jack Doyle, okay?
Okay.
On the side, Rick Venturi, segment you have to hear each and every Monday normally, but on a Tuesday after 5 today on FM 107.5 at 1070 The Fan.
Flat. Mariah is Japanese for the future. And in the future, your commute will
be... You're looking for, that's the month of September special. It's Penn Station East Coast Subs.
Go low. It's all things Colts with former coach Rick Venturi. The Ride with JMV on FM 107.5 and 1070 The Fan.
All right. How about number 7 right now? 239-1070. Hey, Mama Rock Me. Ruffo Mortgage Music Center. Darius Rucker and Lady Antebellum. Hey, 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 hey. Leave my barn door open. No. September 14th, number 7, Darius Rucker, Lady Antebellum. Should be a great show. Tony's going to get a winner right now. We'll do another pair on Twitter coming up. Thank you, Live Nation, in just a bit. Back to the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, and Rick Venturi rejoins us. So, ball security, is it a significant issue now with Jack Doyle?
Well, it's an issue. You know, I don't know if, I think that's the second time that's happened. They both happen in critical situations, so it brings great attention to it. One time, obviously, is an anomaly. 2 times you get a little nervous. 3 times would be a trend. So, I think he's the conscientious type of guy. He's the kind of guy really that is going to catch the ball, and he should think catch the ball security. He's not a guy that's going to break it. Like a Gronk, just catch the ball and hang on to it. I don't want to say at this point that it's a total trend, but when you do it the second time, it becomes a little concerning.
37 snaps for Ebron. Should he get more?
Well, yeah, I think he's probably going to get more. The problem is that once you know he's out there, I mean, he's not going to block anybody. He went out there and blocked. He got a holding penalty. I mean, so he basically is like playing 3 receivers. I would say yes. If you ask me the question straight up, because just like the other day, we got him on a linebacker. They got confused on the safety behind him. He didn't back him up. He jumped the inside route, and so you got him one-on-one. And I think we can do more of that. The biggest thing in the use of Ebron, you got to understand, is that Ebron is more of a vertical guy to get on people, to get on linebackers and get them down in the seam, to get them on the backside and get them on a quick post. And so you do need John protection to do that. So that's where, hopefully we get Costanzo back, because we're going to be sitting in this 3-5 step drop now.
Yep.
And pretty soon, I mean, what they start doing is they just start sitting on you.
So Rick Venturi on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So let's just say, for the sake of your explanation here, what if Costanzo's not ready, and knowing that Webb is out? All right, that and what you thought the offensive line looked like in general on Sunday.
Well, like I said, they battled within context, but they had their issues. I mean, they really had their issues. Once, when we did have to throw the ball and hold on to it a little bit, we did get edge pressure. It wasn't terrible. I thought that they held it there pretty good. Nelson was okay. They missed a Tex game on the left side that was a sack. He got that serious holding penalty because, in the red zone there early in the game before the interception, when Atkins just, basically powered him, and he didn't want to let him go into the quarterback, and he grabbed him. He got a hold. But, I think overall it was decent. Like I said, I wouldn't take a victory lap on it, because the scheme is providing them the opportunity to be successful. I don't think that if you get in a have-to-pass game that it's going to look as good as it did on Sunday. Now you really have an issue without Webb. Now, and, to get into it, this is somewhat related to Washington. One of Washington's best part of their defense is their edges. I mean, they've got 2 pretty good corners in Norman and Dunbar, but they've got 2 really good guys on the edge, 2 really, really good edge rushers. I mean, Kerrigan from Muncie is, and I said this early, he's a better player than I thought. This is a kid that can get off that edge, and he'll line up on both sides, but primarily he's going to line up where Dunlap lined up on that left side. And so your right tackle's critical. He had 13 sacks last year. He can cut the edge, but he can really take you back to the quarterback. He can make a good inside move. I mean, he is very, very good, very, very dangerous. So the right tackle position is really, really critical. And then Preston Smith on the other side is also, he's their second best rusher, and he comes off that edge. Now, he's not tremendously a speed guy, but he is a power guy. He will turn speed to power. He had 8. So you had 21 sacks with them out of 2 guys. Now, understand Minuski. We know him well. I know him like the back of my hand. I mean, in terms of if we had 2 hours on what to do against his defense, I can design it. And one thing they're going to do, which he did here, remember, they led the league last year in quarterback hits, and they were 8th in sacks with 42. And if you remember, one of the best defensive jobs done here in years was in 2014 after Mathis got hurt, when he manufactured 41 sacks here without Mathis in 2014 and got that defense to 11th. That's the best job that's been done around here in a long, long time for what he has. So he's going to be bringing 5. And they don't do it as much on first down. On first down, you can throw quick and in front of them, and their corners play off a little bit. But once they get into a passing down, you've seen it here, they're going to get that 5th rusher. They're going to come off that edge, and they're going to get up and press you. And that was pretty effective in 2014 until teams begin to stack in bunches, and I can name the 2 teams, was Pittsburgh and New England. And, you have to be ready to do that, because otherwise they're going to get up in your face, and they're going to bring they're going to bring that extra guy, that extra blitz, and you're not going to know where he's coming from, because that's what he does best. That's the Minuski way. So, you got a real problem here. I don't like Smith on the edge. You saw him. I've been saying that all summer. They put him on the edge for the one play. He was actually a tight end, but he's an edge blocker, and Dunlap ran right by him. I just don't see it, So, I mean, maybe you have to do it out of necessity. I got a feeling to go Raven Clark at left tackle and Haig at right tackle.
So Rick Venturi, he's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. How, from what you have seen, and again, it's the sample size of a game, does Alex Smith complement what Washington does offensively?
He's a good player now. I mean, he's got a tremendous amount of wins. For a 34-year-old, he looks like he's 23. And if we don't start getting some discipline on that edge, because what Alex can do now, what Alex can do that Dalton can't do, Alex is a tremendous bootleg thrower. It goes back to his San Francisco days. I mean, and we just refuse to play the edge. I mean, that's what I'm saying. We're running wild, but it's not with much discipline. It's not with much technique. And he's going to get out there on that edge, and then you're going to have those guys like, he's got those really good tight ends. Jordan Reed is back. His buddy Vernon Davis, is back from San Francisco. They got the tight ends. He can get it to those 2 backs, Peterson and Chris Thompson. And, and then I loved Crowder, the slot. I think he's one of the best slots in the league. And when you ask me about him, he can do that. He can escape. I don't know if you realize this or not, but in his playoff games, I think he's got 9. I think he's been in 9 playoff games. He has a 94 passer rating in those games. I mean, I think they're thrilled to death with him. I know Cousins had a really good day for Minnesota, but they were never sold on him. I think they're really happy. He's tailor-made. He's played in West Coast offense his whole life. He comes from, Andy Reid to Jay Gruden, and I know Jay really well. I know that offense really well. And he's just a perfect fit. He gave him a totally new look. And getting those guys back like Thompson and Reed has really made a difference. I mean, and then they're a little bit better in the offensive line. Now, they're big. They're huge across that front. I still think if you're going to get them, you got to get them with movement. If you try to run into them, it's like running into Muir Woods out there in California. You're not going very far. But I think you have to stunt this team, in order to beat them on the pass protection. But you have to have disciplined lanes against Smitty, because he'll take it and go. He'll be on that edge really quick. The other thing again about Minuski too, you got to remember, if you guys have good memories, I make a living doing this, but to do all this stuff, he does have one flaw in that defense, and it showed here in certain games. And, they were 32nd versus the run last year. Now, part of it was losing their tackles. They didn't, now they got Allen and Payne back, so they'll be a little bit better. But he likes to bring those ends or outside linebackers upfield, Kerrigan and Smith. He likes to bring them upfield, and yet the tackles play static across the line, like they did here. So what happens is there is a real crack back to what I call the 3 side. They play an under. Most teams play over like we do. They play an under. And basically you want to run in that hole between that 3 technique and that end that's coming upfield. And you want to gash them. They get gashed a lot. I'm going to show that on my show this week because I got a lot of tape on it. And if you can remember what New England did to us when Minuski was here, they doubled that 3 and they came after Freeman, everything, and it wasn't Freeman's fault. They just came in there with everything but the kitchen sink. Remember that day they gained about 194 yards? I know you do, John, one of those New England games where they got in those 2 tight ends and just pounded us. And so that's one of the things you want to remember. You want to be able to pound in there at that 3, throw underneath them on first down. But then when you get in a long yardage situation, you've got to be able to pick up that 5th guy, and you got to find a way to beat that press because those corners will be up in your face.
Yeah, and I tell you what, we'll get back to this coming up on the other side, Rick. But I mentioned before the last break the long sustained touchdown scoring drives they had. 3 70-plus yards, and I consider this really a bad dynamic for a team that describes itself as bend it but don't break defensively. Plus the extra that you might get weather-wise in the Washington area coming up on Sunday is concerning. I want to talk about that and what the Bengals did in the second half, knowing how good the Colts looked offensively in the first half and what they did to kind of buckle down in the second. Rick, we'll come back with that with Rick Venturi coming up on the other side. The segment you have to hear each and every Monday. Just today, it's a Tuesday after 5 here on FM 107.5 and 1070 The Fan.
Hello, this is Joe Cordell of Cordell & Cordell. Here are a few quick divorce tips we provide.
Trucker van. Make no mistake, that's one place and one place only. Tell them I sent you to CarX today.
Hey, Dan Dodge sent you.
It's all things Colts with former coach Rick Venturi. The Ride with JMV on FM 107.5 and 1070 The Fan.
Kevin Bowen tomorrow. I'm going to do some more Darius Rucker, Lady Antebellum on Twitter a little bit later on. Hey, good for Reggie Miller having that mural. That's awesome. Fantastic for a guy that did so much for this organization, this community. Everybody still loves around here. That's a great call. Tony's over there. I'm John. Rakestraw earlier. We did quick slant. We need to do something else like that tomorrow, too. Get to thinking right now, Tony, would you? Thank you.
You got it, John.
All right. Rick Venturi rejoins on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So give me the combination here. Long, sustained touchdown drives, 3 times 70-plus yards in Arizona on Sunday versus a bend but don't break described style of defense.
Well, actually, you mentioned it, and more than likely, this is going to be a weather-affected game on Sunday. And I honestly think that would help us in different ways, specifically to what you're asking me. The Redskins are a team that is multidimensional. Now, when you stop them, you have to stop them from numbers to numbers. Jay Gruden is a numbers-to-numbers coach. I mean, most of the football happens between the numbers. And the best players are their tight ends, the 2 guys I mentioned, their slot in Crowder, and then their 2 running backs in Peterson and Thompson. Doxson is a possession guy. Richardson is kind of a deep guy, but the majority of the plays come out of that inside cylinder. So you really have to pack it in against them and defense that. Now, they're old school in that they run a lot of pivots and options like Thompson. A dry feel for him. He can come in there and make a break, and we're going to have a hard time ever playing him one-on-one. Same way with Crowder on 3rd and short. Those guys have quick, really ability. Their tight ends have it, both Reed and Davis. So, I mean, those guys really are handfuls when it comes to the passing game and beating both man and zone coverage. They're very diverse. Peterson, is a guy that can take it still up there. I mean, he can still run it. It's amazing to me how he sat out there and he's playing well, but he's more their north-south guy. If it's really wet and the conditions are such then he's probably going to be the guy that's going to carry the load because they're going to try to play on the heavy field. But I think the simpler the game for us and our defensive concept, if they have to reduce things from their game, reduce all those skill players inside, then it helps us. If they're forced to reduce by weather, I think it plays into the hands of a very, very simple defense. And at the end of the day, I started to say something about the defense is, and I, like I said, I think they play hard. I don't think they play real disciplined. I don't think they play technically real sound. Maybe that will come. But the way I talk about, grading offense and defense and different things. One thing you have to prove to me as an NFL coach, offense and defense, and I think we did a really good job on offense, is eventually on defense, you have to take away what a team does. I mean, the two things, I know I went on your show, I went into my show, and I said the first two things you take away is Mixon and you take away A.J. Green. And, we did neither. So, down the road here, that you got to check that whole card. Eventually, you just can't play defense. You have to play defense and stop people. But, going back to your original premise, I think a really bad day, a little bit like Buffalo last year, I think that would play to our advantage, actually, because if we can get them to reduce and we can get those inside skill players, Thompson and Crowder in those tight ends, if we can slow them down because they don't have great footing on their pivots and their precise passing game, then I think it comes back to our wheelhouse.
So Rick Venturi, he's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Anything else stand out to you about that matchup with the Bengals overall, and especially with the new guys in mind? I don't think we've talked about Himes too much, and really the fact that Luck spread the ball around to 9 different receivers. I was worried early when he threw that pick. I thought this guy's going to be zoned in on Jack Doyle and T.Y. Hilton all day. Yeah. But he got comfortable and spread it around nicely.
No, he really did, and that's why I do credit the game plan that utilized everybody everywhere. And a lot of that, those of us that were there every day saw a lot of that, John, and we kind of knew that was in the toolkit. And basically, they used Hines like they did in practice. I mean, if you go back to the OTAs, he's a guy that played out at the flanker, would come back in, would run that H angle, and so he's going to have that versatility role. He really is. And you're going to see that. You're going to get the more protection you can get. I think the more downfield matchups you'll get with Ebron. Grant is going to do what he did. He's going to catch 9 passes for 59 yards. I mean, that's who he is. And again, you're going to have to get the ball to Hilton. Now they did get it to him, and he just dropped the big one because that was a even and leaving touchdown right there. That was a dime. So yeah, they moved it around exceptionally well, and I mean I think that's what you have to do. I think that's something that we haven't seen around here before. And just the quick rhythm alone was critical. But again, there's specific things you have to do on that Washington defense. There's things that they struggle on, which is basically the running game, underneath coverage on first down. But when they get on third down, remember you've got to protect those edges and that fifth guy. And you got to find ways to stack and beat that press coverage because he was good at it here. They're good at it there. So that's what I see. I mean, again, they have started out really, really quick. So any weather advantage or anything would help us. They look good. They look good Sunday. There isn't any question about it. They dominated, like you said. They just dominated Arizona at Arizona. Now the good news is I think Gruden was 0-4 in openers, so he probably is a little bit relieved after getting that one in the division. So even though it's a home game, maybe they breathe a little easier this week. That would be good.
Awesome. You're just fantastic. Just great work. Great work. Top notch.
All right, brother. We'll stay in touch this week, and we'll keep talking at game time.
We better do that. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Rick Venturi, it is the segment. You don't have to listen to anything else. This is it. You are dialed in. All the info you need right here. Podcast 1070thefan.com. By the way, the podcasts have, in the month of August, been enormous. I got to thank you for that. Hope you listen live, and I want you to listen live, but if you have to double back, if you missed anything, do it. 1070thefan.com. Greg Rakestraw, our quick slant. Tony's got something new coming up tomorrow, maybe. Maybe I'll think about something new tomorrow, too. And Rick Venturi, 1070thefan.com. Darius Rucker tickets will do on Twitter, and a little bit later on, Insta Replay and Trackside tonight, 7 until 9. This is FM 107.5 at 1070 The Fan. Have a great night.
State Farm, Robert here.
Robert, somebody